Hello, my name is Drew Clark, and today I'll be telling you about how much does population density affect the spread of COVID-19. So COVID-19 is a deadly disease that we haven't seen since 1918 with the Spanish flu. And while it's really bad, there's a lot of positives that can come out of this so we can stop from having it spread so much for the next pandemic. But my thinking is at the very beginning that we heard about all the people in New York and the bodies on the ground, which is an unfortunate sight. And then we heard about everyone in California, and all these cities got hit so hard, and we all shut down the country. And I just wanted to see if the densely populated areas, the states, if population density was the reason. So I started off by looking at the total positive cases, and as you can see here, it says that New York, Florida, Texas, and California have the highest cases by far. And I really don't like this map because there's all these dark blue areas, and it's really saying that only those 4 states got hit hard, and the rest really didn't get hit that hard. So what I did is I created a calculated field to show the total positive cases as a percent of the population of the state. And that's what you see here on the right. And I feel like this is a much more accurate representation of what is going on in today's world. And it's really interesting to look at, actually, because you see New York, Florida, California, and Texas are all red, like they were with the total positive cases. But there's much more states that have a high percentage of population, with the lowest being only 0.3 of a percentage point, and the highest being 3.73%. And what I find very interesting is that North Dakota and Louisiana have a high percentage of cases of population, but they were blue when you look at the total positive cases. So, in all reality, it's not just New York, Florida, Texas, and California that's not doing too well. It's over half the country. It's over half the country has at about a 2% of their population are infected with COVID-19. So then I was like, so we see that these densely populated states are there, but how do they show up against the other one? So I created a bubble chart that shows, this is the ranked states. So the bigger the bubble, the closer they are to 1. 1 was Washington, D.C. I did not include Washington, D.C., Hawaii, Alaska, or Puerto Rico in my analysis because I wanted to stick with the continental 48 states, because Puerto Rico, Alaska, and Hawaii are all away from all these densely populated cities, and then Washington, D.C. is just such a densely populated area and so small that it really skewed the results. It was an outlier for sure. So as you can see here, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, these are all northeastern states that are the highly densest states in America. And what this means is that more people live in square mile, like there's more people per square mile for these states. And the reason why is because when you get to the Midwest and the West, there's a lot of farms, a lot of land. There's a lot less people per even acre mile. There's just less people for the amount of space there is. So, but when you look at this map, it's showing that population density I mean, you see New Jersey and New York, they're red, but Connecticut, Massachusetts, Delaware, they all aren't red. They're not, their percentage of population is not near as high as some of these lower populated states. And look at, like I said, look at North Dakota, Louisiana. Louisiana is actually the 26th ranked state for population density, but they are number 1 for the total cases as a percentage of population. So, and now that really got my mind turning, because I was thinking that New York, Florida, California, these northern states would have the most cases as a percentage of population. So then I dug a little bit deeper, and the starter workbook that we had shows each state the confirmed cases throughout this pandemic. So as you can see, I pull up New Jersey, because New Jersey, as you can see, is the highest, is the number 1 state, densest populated state, not including Washington, D.C. So we look at New Jersey, and we see that the peaks happen in April, in May. Okay, that makes sense, because that's when the government was shutting everything down. That's when the travel bans were taking place. So that makes sense that the confirmed cases happened then. And then I want to look at the other one. So let's look at Connecticut. Connecticut, their peaks happen in April and May. And just for another example, Massachusetts, we have there is as you can see, they had to take away some cases because something happened, but their peak happened in April and May. That makes a lot of sense to me. But when we look at Louisiana, their peak happened in August. Remember with North Dakota? Their peak happened in April. But why is Louisiana? Their peaks happen in August. Why is Texas? Their peaks happen in August. Why are these lower populated states? We can look at another one, for example, Iowa. See, their peak happened in September. Why are these lower, densely populated states that have a higher percentage of cases happening in August and September? And to conclude everything up, these densely populated cities got hit really hard at the very beginning of the pandemic because they didn't know how to go through it. We haven't been through this since 1918. They didn't know that when to shut stuff down. They just knew that people were getting sick and people were dying way too fast because there were so many people and this coronavirus spread so fast that they were just confused. So then finally they just said we have to shut it down. So now you fast forward to August and September, we're seeing that there's states that are having a second spike, that never had a big spike in the first place. And I truly believe that happened because these states opened up too fast, because they thought that since they didn't get the big spikes that New York and California and New Jersey had at the very beginning, that they'd be fine and that they could reopen like normal and be fine. But what happened was that because they had less restrictions, people actually got the coronavirus more frequently. So how does population density affect a pandemic? By looking at the data that I've had in front of me, this data came from the census, U.S. Census. It also came from the Tableau coronavirus, which they received their information from the CDC and other health organizations. So population density seems to be a huge factor in the beginning of the pandemic. So why is it not a huge factor now? Because COVID has spread so far and so vast that almost every county in the United States has had someone with COVID, and it even had people die from COVID. So it's like so you have your curve here, and you have population. The densest cities are going to get hit first, and then it levels off, and then the other states that didn't get hit as hard, they start opening up faster than these big cities, and then they're seeing the spikes. So in the future, what we can learn from this is that these states that are very highly dense, we need to nick it right off the bat and shut them down. And then once we get them settled, then we'll worry about the lower populated densest states. But in all honesty, we are not going to know what's going to happen for another couple of years. Once this pandemic's finally over with, once they get a vaccine or it goes away, whatever happens, there's a lot of data to look through, and hopefully we can find a way to stop this pandemic in the highly populated areas so that these smaller areas, these lower populated areas, will be able to open up without having this second spike. Because of the way we're going, if you have the cities open up, or you have these small populated areas open up, and then people start going to the cities, then we're just going round and around. So the problem that happened is that the highly populated dense states got hit hard in the beginning, and then these states that weren't hit as hard at the beginning opened up early with not enough protocols, and they ended up seeing a second spike. So hopefully here in a few years we can get the data that we need, and hopefully the next pandemic will not be near as bad as this one. Thank you.